Word. All right, so get that out of the way. So at this point, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Anshuman Tiwari. His topic for the night is to speak to us about quality challenges and the responses. Aside from everything that Vic has shared from the Meet the Speaker session, we have it that Anshuman is also works as the head of improvement delivery excellence with DXC Technology. He's a process transformation professional with experience across multiple industries, very diverse: banking, services, IT, manufacturing. He sets up and has scaled up world-class operations and excellence programs. He's also a fellow of ASQ. As a hobby, and I think as we're learning, it takes more and more of his time, but he also runs a podcast and has a YouTube channel focused on managing better. And I provided an address to that website. And he also has contacts and information on LinkedIn and other sites that I'll share with you shortly. He does live in Bangalore, India, and he's an aspiring minimalist, he says, and is passionate about personal productivity. So what about quality challenges and responses? Well, you can read for the screen. We have new methods, analytics, automation, IT. They're kind of nudging us out of our comfort zone. So what can we do in response to the accelerated change, rate of change that's happening in the world around us? How do we keep quality at the forefront? So Anshuman is going to discuss some key challenges of expectations versus delivery, adapting to new technology. How do we ourselves change and improve to be more responsive? And then is going to issue the challenge of maybe building our repertoire into more of a qualitist instead of just narrowly defined as a quality professional. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Anshuman. Let me first make you a co-host. Where'd you go, Anshuman? What the heck? There we are. Just as I was going to click on your name, it moved. Make co-host. All right. So you should now see a new menu bar on your screen, Anshuman, where you can start presenting if you want your video camera on, or just want to start talking. And as I did mention before, Anshuman did make available a handout. If you would like to take notes, feel free to visit our My ASQ website. It's right there on the landing page. You can download that and print it, and you have something to write on. So with that, take it away.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks, Vic, and everybody else who's involved in this organizing this session. Always a pleasure to be back speaking to ASQ teammates, colleagues, and across the world. So of course, I do this quite often. A little less these days, like Vic mentioned. I've started branching out a little bit, but the hidden agenda always is to make sure that the voice of quality and the relevance and the impact we make as a profession gets more audience, right? So my branching out is not so much to get away from quality, but to bring more people back to quality. So, and these kind of invites that I occasionally get are a pleasure to attend, because this reminds me that where my roots and where I started. So thank you very much for the invite. Just a quick check, as always these days, the phrase of the year or phrase of the last 2-3 years is, can you hear me well? Can you see me well?
Yeah, see
Good.
you very, very well, and audio is
And
very good. For those of you who are on the call, you should have the option to view, and you can choose view the speaker, and it would take up your full screen rather than just a little icon thumbnail. So sorry for the interruption. Go ahead.
No problem.
And welcome.
Thank you once again. Thank you for the introduction as well, Bob, because the quality part of the introduction rarely gets done. So it's nice to hear that being a fellow, almost 10 years now. So that was quite a journey. But one has to always move on from every journey, and that's what I've been trying to do. So you did introduce a little bit of what I wanted to share, and now that you've, yesterday I gave you a little bit of a brief around what was the starting time and how, what time I can join and other stuff. What I've done is that I've added a little bit more bonus uh, to the talk. So hopefully I'll get to that. And before I get started, a quick check, Vic or Bob, anyone. It is 7 a.m. for me. How much time do I have? I gather 45 minutes was the original, but if there is a change, let me know.
Yeah, that should
Yeah,
be okay.
you can.
You want to make sure you don't miss your flight, so that's
No,
45 minutes presentation, another 15 for Q&A. So whatever fits
sure.
your schedule.
Sure. So that will be my outer limit. So I'll stick to that. Okay. I do have a few slides, and I normally don't use slides, but I must confess, some pressure being in the company of stalwarts, and said that, okay, maybe I need a handout to make sure that people can hold me accountable later on after they have heard me. So I will occasionally bring up the slides, but more or less I'll talk from the heart, because this is a community of quality professionals, and I'm a quality professional to the core. So it's better to speak one to one in a way, right? So with that, of course, once again, thank you very much for inviting and all, but let's get down to the, and Bob, you did mention that you've already shared, so I will occasionally bring up the slides, but we'll keep moving. Now is the technology challenge of the day, how to get the screen. One of you will have to let me know that this works.
Yep, I see your screen. You've got like 3 different menu bars going across. There you go, full screen. Yeah, you're good to go.
Cool. So this kind of a picture, of course, many of us would have seen when we describe quality or talk about quality. It's a long road, and it signifies many things, right? So I often talk about that, having a road is fine, but what is the road telling us? It is telling us that it is a long, long road, and we as quality professionals should be prepared for the long haul. Nothing in quality actually gets done in a day, or there are no shortcuts really. There are no shortcuts in any profession, but more so in quality, because everything that you put in place has some impact over the years. Now that's a good thing, and maybe not so much of a good thing, because obviously it keeps you rooted to the profession for a longer time. You eventually make an impact on the organization and society at large. The not so good thing is that in the last 15, 20, 25 years, maybe more, I've seen a more active career in this part. Every few years, the pace of change, the speed of change, the expectations from management, society, everything is so rapidly changing that the traditional methods of quality, or the traditional approach of quality, gets a challenge, and it's a significant challenge now, because we are, quote unquote, fairly academic in our approach. We have a method, we want to follow that method, and using that method we've had results in the past, so therefore we want to follow that method. But the rest of the world is changing, and that puts one of the challenges. So that's the long road, which has more pit stops now, and maybe more curves and turns and twists now than maybe when we all started our career, or some of you started before me. Maybe the road was easy, maybe the route was known, maybe you there was enough shade on the path, but now there is not enough shade. The quality road is quite winding, and sometimes narrower, and arduous and difficult. So that's the reason why I chose this image to start with, not because it is a traditional image that every quality presentation has, but because it is now an imperfect road. It is not the same road as 25 years ago or 20 years ago. So, and it's been for a while, and I've been speaking about it, and I started speaking about the quality challenge primarily as the quality of quality professionals. So, being in the profession, I'm sure you included, I certainly interview quite a lot of people, and over the years, I realized a pattern that apart from, of course, the challenges of quality, which by the way I had not articulated by that time, but the one challenge I noticed, and it was a significant challenge, is that the quality of quality professionals was really alarmingly going down, at least in India, where I was hiring. And later on, I've hired in other countries, including the US and parts of Europe and Asia, and building teams in larger organizations around quality topics. And I found that the quality of quality professionals was really going down. So that prompted me to further get a little deeper, and I've always been somebody who, if I identify a problem, I want to solve it, or at least contribute to it, and not only talk about it. So and which is one of the ways I actually got involved with ASQ several years ago in 2000, starting 2005, 6. And the little story and anecdote is that I took that time it was called Certified Quality Manager. Later on, Manager of Organizational Excellence got added, I think. So I took that exam, and I was very annoyed with the way it was conducted and how it was managed, and the whole stuff. uh, this was 2004 or 5 or something, and I had a major, I would say, email match with the ASQ, and eventually realized that things will not improve unless I take some responsibility and do something. So from a member, I started hunting out for other people who might be interested in putting up or standing up a India chapter, so to say. But there was no India chapter. There was no India. So we set up a volunteer committee. There were a couple of other people. Some of you might know a popular name, Govind Ramu, in the US. Uh, he and a couple of other people joined together, and we started doing a volunteer activity. And that was my ASQ journey, which is also illustrative of the fact that I did not want to suffer in silence that ASQ is collecting the same fees in India, but not offering the same service, or not even nearly the same service. So anyway, and that was my way of responding to poor quality. And thankfully, over the years, ASQ responded and has an India office, flourishing India office for some years now, and so on. So yeah, so this part we uh, so why this talk? Why do we even bother about all this? We bother because we are, to the core, quality professionals. We want the profession to stay alive, not only to survive but also to thrive. And the profession will not thrive if we are cheerleaders. Profession will thrive if we are leaders in it, if we are making some impact, making some difference to it. And that was one of the reasons why I started branching out, because I had to bring people back to quality. And that's something that I keep suggesting to everybody, that if people are leaving your profession, you have to go out and get them back. And that will happen only if you also play the game that they are playing a little bit. It will not happen by sticking to our game and then expecting everybody else to return. So what are the new methods that are prompting this difficulty? uh, IT, of course, is a word I've used, but it is all about technology, including technology in audit, technology in production, technology in many cases. Quality is inbuilt into the production or service system, and therefore you need less inspection and conformance and assurance, right? Now, you may argue that inspection, assurance, conformance is a lower form of quality, therefore it's okay for you know IT to get into it. But I do feel that while it is okay, we need a response. We need to figure out how will we make sure that the what we committed to the customer is still delivered. I've been in situations in especially banking setups where a lot of IT was there and we were still making huge mistakes. And those of you, I'm sure all of you are banking customers, you will still see that, in spite of the fact that there are a lot of um, there's a lot of IT or there's a lot of technology, you don't get your stuff done on time. And why is that? So there is still need for quality in that kind of a space. Automation in the last few years, robotic process automation or automation in general has taken over a lot of our people into their fold. And that's again a challenge, because while automation does solve problems, the way I look at it is that, it is, and pardon my French, but it is, if you automate crap, it is faster crap. So if the process is not good enough, you automate it. It is only a faster, poor process, right? Or a faster, bad process, or an inefficient process. Analytics, of course, is again, because analytics is comes easy to us because quite a few of us have a Six Sigma background, and the classical Six Sigma background included a lot of statistics. Of course, the new age Six Sigma background is quite polluted, so I will not comment on that. But the classical Six Sigma approach included a lot of statistics. So moving from there to analytics is not so complex, I would say. But all these are making life difficult, and the legacy that the stalwarts of the field, Duran, Deming, and quite a few names that Bob included in the quiz early on, they, that legacy, at least I don't want to be around when that legacy is lost. Right. So in my life, and I'm expecting all of you to make sure that we can help sustain that legacy. So that's a general background to what I wanted to talk about. But and when you see these slides, you will notice one thing, that my limitation, or my artistic or creative limitation on using PowerPoint or something similar is this much. I can't use transitions and other stuff. So everything that I want to talk about is on the slide. First one is, of course, expectation versus delivery. And I don't want to quote any numbers because there is no definitive research around this, but the promises the quality profession makes in the last 10-15 years, it has not lived up to that promise. And especially in the parts that I have worked in, and I have teams across the world now, and I find it very, very difficult to swallow that we have made promises around there will be no defective projects, or there will be projects which will be delivered on time, on schedule, on cost. And quality cost schedule is for me the extended meaning of quality, right? So if you can meet the required quality at the right cost on schedule, that is the new quality in my sense, but we haven't been able to do it as a profession across many industries and countries. So it's a general observation. And there is, of course, a component that the expectation itself has increased significantly. So this sun has started. uh, okay, so the expectation itself has significantly changed because of competition from other professions that I spoke about. The expectation is no longer 10x, it is 100x, 1000x. Can you transform in like a month? There are companies or processes which have not changed or improved in 10 years, but the expectation from a quality professional is to transform it in 2 months or 1 month, or sometimes even lesser. And that probably comes because some of the professions, including automation and IT, are able to promise that. Even they are not able to deliver, but that promise makes our life difficult. So the expectation versus delivery is a two-pronged problem. One is, of course, we have as a profession probably slackened a little bit as a general statement. And two is, of course, the expectations are significant and very difficult now. So that's about the you can say expectation versus delivery. The other is and expectation versus delivery. I'm also speaking from running large teams of sometimes 300, 400 people across in the quality function across countries. So it's also from my personal experience as well, not just industry experience and to people. The second area is around adapting to technology, and that seems to me probably the even a bigger problem than the first one. So in the last several years, maybe 10 definitely, technology has taken over several professions, right? I'm talking about general technology, right? The use of workflow tools, the use of enterprise software, and those kind of things. So enterprise software, as in, if you use SAP or other such system, that's an enterprise software, and that has taken over a lot of stuff. And I find significant reluctance in quality professionals to embrace that technology. It is as if it is a sacred place that we are coming from, and this is not sacred enough. The truth is that technology has already taken over our lives, and if we didn't realize that, maybe we are just denying the inevitable. I personally know quite a few people in across the world who refuse to believe that their classical approach to quality and lean and Six Sigma and other stuff is under challenge because of technology. They can, of course, retain that view, but the difficulty is that the rest of the world doesn't agree. And if the rest of the world doesn't agree, then our problems. I'll share examples like there are today enterprise software where it is possible to have an audit trail of any action, be it banking, be it manufacturing, be it anything. And I've been in a consulting environment, so I can definitely share. So audit log of every activity that is conducted is available. So you can actually conduct a electronic audit in a sense that you don't need a physical audit to verify. So in an earlier age, many of us might have started our career or may still be in auditing, which is one of the core pillars of quality, I think. But what has happened? Assume a banking process or a fintech process or any other uh, service process. The normal method of auditing was there are 100,000 transactions, you pick 5, 10, 20, depending on the sampling plan you are using, and you audit whether the payment ask was raised on time, when was it approved, when was it drawn down, and when was the money available, and so on. What is today, not only today, for the last few years, is possible is that you don't need a human being to do all this, because the system itself can perform these checks on all the transactions, not just the sample. So the universe is audited. In our sampling plan language, the sample is not audited, the universe is being audited, because it just needs a backend simple script to run. And in a day, if there were 100,000 transactions, all those 100,000 transactions can be audited in the same way. So where does that leave the auditor of this process, right? Now, I know auditors, and I'm sure if you look around, you will also know such people who are sulking away and thinking that, oh, this technology has taken over my job. And in some cases, this job doesn't even belong to somebody else. So you can't no longer blame India or Philippines or East Europe for that part. It actually doesn't exist. The job itself doesn't exist because it has been taken over or merged into the system itself. And this is happening a lot more in the few years. And if you are in a service auditing or a process auditing space, you will see this happening a lot more in the next 2 to 5 years. Simply put, many of these requirements will go away. Now, that's a surely a daunting feeling, because there's too much. Let me know if I'm sounding more bright or appearing more bright than I should, but it's getting very sunny here. Yeah. So coming back to this thing, so this adapting to technology, the lack of speed is making some difference. And even bigger, moving on, an even bigger issue is uh, changing ourselves. So like I shared and Vic earlier shared and Bob shared my example of trying to move out, branch out, and I explained the logic to you. I know quite a few people who are doing this, but this came reluctantly to me. So it was not like I was sitting under a tree and I had a, you know, I would say enlightening moment, but it came reluctantly, and I still find quite a few people in the profession being reluctant about changing ourselves, including hiring situations where I have conducted interviews where the candidate says that, in response to the question when I ask that, why do you want to move to a quality profession, and the answer, you know, I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, is that, oh, this is a very 9 to 5 job, you know, I can take care of my family, I can take care of this and this and that. All that is fine, but you know, if you give that kind of answer to me or any other, you know, person in a global role leading a large global team, surely no job is available, right? So whether we find it discriminatory, whether we find it you know, rude or other stuff, it is not available. So this is not a cushy job, and you know, when you hire, I'm sure you keep an eye on that. There are a lot of people who want to join quality because it is a cushy job, or it appears like a cushy job, or you have to have a plan, you get 3 months, 6 months to do a 6 Sigma project, and life is easy. So that part, the changing ourselves part, is something that I keep talking, and I have a little later, you know, some suggestions on how we can manage that change. The So yeah, so I'm just checking how are we on time? Seems good. Bob and Vic, how do we take questions at the end, right? Like you said, but I see something in the chat, so let me just quickly. They're still okay. Fine, I'll take those questions later. Yeah.
Yeah.
So improving the profession itself, that's something that we will come to, and I will share a couple of views on the next slide. So you know, these 4 blocks can be 3 blocks, can be 2 blocks, can be 25 blocks, but you get the point. What I'm trying to say is that as a profession, we need to be 10x and 100x if we want to compete with automation, analytics, technology. The impact that we making an impact only in inspection audit is not going to take us any further. The impact has to be in improvement and other spaces, because inspection and audit in many ways is being taken over by technology itself, and it will continue to be so more and more. Of course, it will not become tomorrow or day after tomorrow 100% technology oriented thing, but maybe 5 years, 10 years, and so on. And there will always be some space for human intervention in that space, but it will shrink, right? So the third was around changing ourselves. How do we change ourselves to make sure that we continue to make an impact in the space that we have chosen? This is a chosen profession, right? Nobody came to us and asked us to pick up quality. We chose this profession and we've chosen to stay in the profession. So we may as well try and make some difference or make an impact or a lasting impact to the profession. Otherwise, the profession, the rug under our feet is slipping away, right? And improve the profession itself, which is more about what can we do to the profession so that it expands, right? So if the profession expands, we get more opportunities, and in general, the newer generation also can join in. So yeah, some of these things that I talk about, of course, are making an impact, innovating, and reinventing. So a little bit on this in the next 5 minutes or so. First one, a no-brainer based on whatever I spoke in the previous slide. Let's talk more action and embracing digital. When I say digital, it includes all kind of technology aspects and all. A lot of people, my colleagues, friends who are in quality, I find that there is a reluctance in embracing quality and new methods and so on. I understand the reluctance, but I don't understand why we can't overcome that reluctance. So as quality professionals, we keep telling everybody to change. Change is the only constant. It is inevitable. It will happen. We are in charge sometimes of making change happen. But when it comes to adopting that change ourselves, there is significant reluctance. So just for example, I recently uh, over the last few years, I have branched out into understanding how RPA robotic process automation can help. And in one of the roles that I was doing like 3 years ago or so, I was in charge of both automation and quality. So I brought together both the teams, made squads. So in fact, even last year we ran these squads. So the squad was a creative bringing together of automation resources and quality or Six Sigma professionals. So the first and last mile was managed by the Six Sigma people from a process point of view, and the technology change was managed, of course, by the automation people. This worked out brilliantly because the process people are extremely good at understanding the process upfront, and then later on making sure that the deployment is fantastic. But they are weak in developing the solution, right? Because that's not their job. They don't know the technology part, they don't know the robotic process automation and so on. For that part, we got somebody else, and it worked out as a charm because the automation people did not have process skills. So when you put them both in the same team, or like a squad, I called it, it worked out very well because it's a complementary skill, and both teams learned, or both set of people learned from each other. So that's an example I can share. The second area is, of course, significant innovation in how we are thinking. And one of the examples I keep sharing is, maybe I'll share two here: speed and growth. So speed is about whatever we are doing, it has to come down significantly in speed. Working with very senior leaders in the last 5, 7, 10 years, I noticed that their tolerance for change, or to see change, is coming down significantly. So if I give a 2-month timeline for a dashboard on the quality activities, they don't even laugh. They're actually crying because I'm appearing like I'm coming from another planet. So today, everybody expects, for in the dashboard, just to extend the dashboard example, everybody expects their dashboard to be ready tomorrow. What does it take to build a dashboard? Unless, of course, you don't have data sources, unless, of course, your linkage with the data sets is broken and so on. But then you go and solve that problem. So speed has significantly changed, whether we realize it or not. What the leadership and the society in general is expecting from us in terms of speed is significantly higher than what we grew up with. And that is true for every profession, but we are here talking about our profession. The other area is growth and profit. If we are not involved in projects or activity which is helping the company grow, or making more money, we will get marginalized. Many of you might have seen, either in your career, at least I have seen in my career, or in other colleagues' career, that we have been moved one level down in the organization. So quality was directly reporting to head of operations or production or the CEO. In many cases, it's moved one level down. We may feel bad about it, but the reason, of course, is that we are no longer contributing to growth and profit, or directly contributing to growth and profit, and others are. Now, we can feel bad, we can sulk, we can do whatever, but this is how the world sees us. It doesn't matter how we see ourselves. The world sees us as making lesser impact. And therefore, I keep recommending to my team as well, and I try and take myself some projects in the growth space and in the profit space. So if I can help the organization improve sales, or growth, or run some program around profitability improvement. Like last year, we ran a margin improvement program across multiple large accounts in my company. And that brought us, that brought me directly to the CEO's table. I was having a conversation with the CEO, and because then he saw that, oh, I can improve the margin in some key accounts by up to 1% by working on cost of poor quality and related aspect. He didn't care whether it was called cost of poor quality or anything else. Of course, in the meeting, they did appear to be caring, but I knew that they don't care about that. They cared about that 1% potential margin improvement, which in today's day and age, for any large organization, if they can see for some account their profitability increasing from X to X point X and 1% more, that is awesome. Right? So please look at projects, or look at getting engaged in spaces where you can contribute directly or pretty close to direct, if not directly, on growth and profit. Otherwise, we are seen as internal ninjas who can, after a while, if you are somebody who's cleaning up your own house and keeping stuff around and using 5S and Kaizen within the house, after a while, even your family doesn't care because you're already there. Right? So you're taken for granted in that sense, and that happens to the profession as well. So the other part is finding new space, right? So finding new space, one space is of course the environment and green, which the planet anyway needs, right? So it needs people in green space, and people who can bring quality principles to the environment and green space. And I keep talking about other sectors like education, healthcare, and agriculture. Coming from India, the last one is extremely important. Our agricultural efficiency is extremely poor. So as a nation, 2/3 of our nation is engaged in agriculture in some way or the other. So basically, it means that we feed one person who's involved and 1/3 another person. So 2/3 is anyway involved. That's an extremely poor productivity uh, for a nation to have. This may not apply to you because US in general has a pretty high agricultural productivity, and your quality programs in education and healthcare are much better than the rest of the world. But that's a space that, if some youngster is asking me where to go as a quality professional, I would probably say that go into healthcare and education, because A, that's a space that needs us, and B, that's where we can make a significant impact for a longer duration. Right? So, oh, okay. So what do we do? Sorry for the jumping around with the slides, but like I said, I'm not very good with slides, but I tried my hand at putting together some slides today. The term qualities that you see at the end, that's a term I propose that we use more and more for ourselves, because every profession seems to have a name. Our profession doesn't seem to have a name. And this was recognized by Dr. Duran when he published his magnum opus called The World History of Quality. Towards the end of the book called World History of Quality, he did propose a name for the profession, so which unfortunately did not catch up for quite some time. But in the last 2-3 years, a group of people, I am part of that, we are trying to popularize the name Qualitist. And I've tried with ASQ as well that, can this name be adopted a little bit, because the profession needs a name. I don't care whether it is Qualitist or something else, but we do need a name. Somebody in architecture is an architect, and a doctor, of course, is a doctor. Everybody seems a chartered accountant, company secretary. Everybody has a as a profession name, and of course, what's in a name, but it does help to have an identity of some sort. So we've been promoting this a little bit, and a small group of us has tried to build together a program around certified qualitist as well. So there is a panel which evaluates how the qualities are doing and so on. So more about that if somebody has a question later on. But this was the bonus that I thought I'll add. This was not in the first set of slides that I shared with you, Bob, but I thought this is something I talk about quite often, that when I get questions that, okay, fine, all this is fine, but what do we do? So I do talk about career transitions from a quality professional point of view. So there are three types in general, and this is not my theory alone. This theory is available, similar theory, I have adapted it a little bit, is available in a book called So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport, and also in Vijay Govindarajan's three-box innovation book, where he talks about three-box innovation for companies. And he, of course, teaches at the Tuck School in the US. And so I have adapted those principles to career transitions. So bear with me if they don't sound uh, very academic, but they are practical. I would think so. The um, first one is, of course, overlap. So when we make a career transition, we are sometimes, quite often, looking for a similar role in same company, another company, and so on. And what we don't realize is that when we are looking for a similar role, while we are embracing comfort, we are taking less risk, and therefore, if you take less risk, the reward is also lesser. And not much upskilling is required. But this comes to bite us, because eventually upskilling will be required in uh, every profession. Many of us may have started in quality and might end our careers in quality, but that's not true for the current generation. People who are 5-10 years into their careers may be playing up to 3 to 5 career transitions in their working life. And if we are not ready for those career transitions in that sense, we are taking a huge risk. There are people today and over the last 15-20 years who started in something else and are now doing completely something else. And that is going to be the norm going forward, because that's how the world will be. So every 5 to 10 years, changing your profession or your career transition will not be uncommon. And if you are not ready, we won't. I mean, otherwise, of course, we have to be really world class in what we do, so that people keep coming back to us for longer. The intersection part is, of course, medium risk and reward, and requires upskilling. So, which means there are people I know who started out in quality but are now in robotic process automation. So there is some intersection. Some skills are transferable, and you can carry your lessons learned and skills from one to another. And of course, that involves upskilling. It also involves risk and significant reward. The adjacent space is the most interesting one, where I find people have completely switched from one career to another career. And while I would hate to see a person from quality leaving for another profession, but the joy is that whatever we learn as a quality profession can then be taken to another space, completely different body of knowledge. So, uh, for example, yesterday I met at the LinkedIn ceremony that I think Bob and Vic were mentioning. I met somebody who's a professional artist, painter and commissioned artist, and she's actually a chartered accountant by profession, but has given up that profession. There is another person I met who is a technology person, but is now running cohorts on helping people to read books better. So complete change in profession, and does it for a profession. So a lot of that will happen, and if we are ready, the risk is high, the reward is high, but we'll need an upgrade. So so that was pretty much it. I think that I wanted to share. I may have been a little radical in how I talk and how I present my ideas, but I hope it did not come across as rude. If it did, it was not the intention. The intention is to remind all of us that we have a legacy to live up to, and only we can make sure that the profession remains. So this slide is, of course, there with you in the handout that Bob has circulated. So if you want to reach out to me, uh, the easiest method these days is LinkedIn, of course, please do. And I'm happy to take questions over, even after this session over LinkedIn or anything. It was mentioned earlier that I do have a YouTube channel and a website. So on the YouTube channel, I host leading speakers, coaches, consultants from across the world to share ideas around how we can improve ourselves. So anyway, with a little bit of a plug for what I do other than work, I will now stop sharing so that I can see you all and verify if everybody is still on the call or slept off. No. So I can see people now. So yeah, so Bob, I'm open to questions now, and happy to take.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for your presentation and insights. Always good to hear from people with different views and looking at the future and what are some opportunities, not only for profession growth, but also professional development and growth. So if anybody has a question on the topic of quality challenges that they're facing, or around the topic of becoming a qualitist, please feel free to unmute yourself.
I do see two comments, not so much questions in the chat. So William Harwood, there is still no audit substitute. I agree, William. I think completely agree that there is still no substitute for the process owner and the I. But I was talking more about as a profession. The profession will keep shrinking. The requirement for human auditors will keep shrinking. Maybe the impact they make will increase, but the numbers will keep shrinking. That's the limited point I was trying to make. And you make a point around healthcare quality problem in hospital, which are looking for quality. Yeah, I totally agree.
That's at least in the United States.
No, it is there across the world, and it is even more stark and difficult in India. So I totally agree with that. But yeah, back to questions.
My comment on the auditing probably really boils down to you need more really good experienced auditors after you've collected all the data from the automated audits to go in and make sense of it. You don't need all of the 16 categories of miscellaneous internal, external auditor assistants, et cetera, that we have running around now.
Absolutely. I think I did say that, the auditor numbers will shrink, but the profession might become more intense and more impactful because each person will need a command. And I would love to see people who have experience of 10, 15 years in the profession becoming auditors. So yeah, so that I agree. Thank you, William.
And just an observation I have is that, we speak of automation and IT becoming more intimately ingrained and as part of the process. And so anything that the quality professional can do to improve their skills in that area. In fact, coming up at the end of in October, I think it's the middle of October, there's the Quality 4.0 Summit within ASQ. And that really, the whole focus of that summit is focused on the role of the quality professional, quality practitioner in an environment where there's more use of IT and neural networks and smartphones, automated self-control. So fits in with becoming more broad as a qualitist, not just know formulas and who the gurus are. And I always ask myself when I was taking that quality manager exam, my observation was, boy, ASQ seems to focus an awful lot on the gurus, which it's always good to know who, what they each stand for. But in practicality, what does my knowledge of Deming necessarily have to do with how I'm going to perform my job as a quality manager? I need to better understand systems thinking and process-oriented thinking. But looking ahead to the future, it's more than just formulas and process models. It's understanding how data are collected and which data should be collected at what frequency. I mean, today's environment, it's easy to collect data, but who's going to look at it? And are the data meaningful? I think that's one role that quality professionals can help organizations to better sort through that menagerie of data that's readily available today.
Let me build on what you said about the data. It's very easy for us to collect the data. However, if you're not auditing the design process, the process that designed the process that is going to be rolled out and used by the people in the organization, if you're not auditing that process, you're going to wind up with a process that desperately needs auditors, because the automatic checks and balances that are put in there through automation aren't necessarily going to pick up on the things that the customer cares about. Unfortunately, there's another problem. What the customer cares about is changing, and that is not going to stop. And in fact, it's accelerating. So you need to design a process that has the ability to be flexible enough that you can not only scale it up once you've got the prototype and the pilot's done, but you have the ability to go in there and make changes. Typical cycle times have been 10 and even 20 years in some of these service industries. Those cycle times are not valid anymore. If you don't design a process that can be redesigned on the fly, just about on the fly, then you've got a poor design. Only somebody who understands the design of processes and the auditing of the process design in situ as it happens is going to prevent that from happening. And so I understand where you're coming from in terms of there's going to be fewer auditors. I'm not sure I'll buy into that. And the reason I don't is because I think one of the problems we have is that we have an awful lot of unbelievably wasteful processes. And you mentioned the one where in this United States, we have the collection of the most unproductive, inefficient, ineffective processes. It's our healthcare industry. Most people don't realize this, but we are one of the more advanced economies of the world, and we have the least, most costly, but least efficient. If you go just based on simple metrics of the longevity of life and the early life, infant mortality and longevity of life, we're something on the order of the OECD, somewhere in the 28 out of 37 in longevity and 33 out of 37 for infant mortality. And we are far and away the most expensive per capita. The next closest is Switzerland, and they're 42% cheaper than us. So if you talk about a royally screwed up process or series of process, there isn't anything that's more royally screwed up than the healthcare industry in the United States. They desperately need a bunch of auditors to go in there and rip out the waste. It's just unbelievable. And that's a person, myself, that has come at this from, I didn't do anything outside of manufacturing until 1997. So, and I've been in this game for 55 years. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I think the U.S. proudly toasts the fact that it's -- in crisis healthcare management, but we're way far behind as far as preventive and health maintenance. I mean, we're always looking for the Band-Aid, not the root cause.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And virtually all of the so-called advanced countries, they're spending their dollars, 2/3 of their dollars go to prevention and 1/3 go to diagnosis and treatment. There's only one country that's the opposite of that, the United States. It's a very costly way to deliver healthcare.
Yeah, I agree, Charles. And I think that was one of the reasons why I said that the profession, and even if I limit it to audit, they will make more impact, but in certain sectors and in certain spaces, the general profession may change. But like happens to every profession, right? You change direction and you move. So you pin down the problem correctly that, maybe where United States is, that healthcare might be the biggest block. It may not be true for several other countries. It certainly is true for India, even though I think from a comparative point of view, with a much lower per capita, India has definitely made, for example, cardiac healthcare, eye healthcare, vision related, these things. Maybe some medical organizations chose those specialties and made them and that may be the way forward, that you can't improve the whole healthcare, but you can improve it in good parts. So healthcare around vision and cardiac situations are two examples that come to mind. So but yeah, thank you for your points, John.
Yeah, your point is well taken on both the cardiac as well as the eye, particularly dealing with women and cataract surgery
Yeah.
in India because of the problems they have with smoke in the kitchen. But the cardiac is very interesting. The individual that has, I think, 5 hospitals, and it might be even up to 7 now, has put one in the Caribbean, and they give you, I think it's a triple or quadruple bypass, all in price of something on the order of $12,000, all in.
Yeah, it's much lesser here. So, but yeah.
And that includes luxurious accommodations too.
Yeah.
And if you're in Bangalore, I might come and meet you as well. So that additional stuff.
Yeah.
I see Anani has posted an interesting challenge in the chat session. She's a degreed statistician, research operator, or an operations researcher who's gone out and seized the initiative to get certified in a number of ASQ bodies of knowledge, but yet she's still having difficulty getting into her foot in the door in the quality world, and is asking for some suggestions and advice.
Sure. So, Ananis, firstly, thank you for being candid and openly sharing your concern. But it's difficult for me to give a specific advice because I don't know you that well, and advice is always difficult to provide and receive both. But in general, what I can certainly say is that if you have made the choice of moving into quality, and it's always a good choice, and currently haven't had success, I would say that use your network, reach out to people. There are enough roles. You may have to start a little lower in the rung as well, because you are moving into a new profession. And this is what I was saying earlier, that the risk and reward are higher when you move across professions. So the risk is higher, which means it may or may not work out. But if it does work out, the rewards are higher. So in short, use your network, reach out to people, is the only way that I know that I have ever got a job. So that's the only advice I can share.
Yeah, and I would offer, Anani, I'm not aware, but of your involvement with the Phoenix section, but if you visited our website anytime in the last 6-8 months, we've greatly increased the number of job postings that are on our job board. Our placement chair, Robert Martin, who I believe is on the call tonight, he was earlier, has been doing a bang-up job posting multiple job openings every week on our website. So if you're looking for an opportunity for a new career or career enhancement, at least there's a good place to start with finding, what are some of the opportunities that are out there in the greater Phoenix area.
I might recommend the best way to sort of get your toe in the door is to use those skills in an area where you're considered a little bit like an expert. You're working in statistics or operations. Maybe not, but that's where you were. If you were still working, you could take your audit skills into those professions, because then you know what you're talking about. There's nothing worse than an auditor coming and they're an auditor. They know their regulations, but they know nothing about the process that they're auditing. And the key to getting the engagement of the people you're auditing is to recognize what they are going through, and then being able to expound on the benefits of how you would help them, how they could solve their problems. You can't give a speech. You have to sort of fit it into your conversations, but that's part of auditing. But I also, to the point you made earlier about, you know, people wanting they want the engagement of quality, and they want it to be done right and everything. But I have listened to that story a few times, a few different cycles, and it always turns out that, but we have to get it out. Oh, I know I said we could get it out in next fiscal year, but we have a big competition and we have to get it out earlier. So we'll have to change it a little. And then, you know, people rush and people are under pressure. And then all of a sudden, all the records look like crap. And you're trying to fix a design history file based on your knowledge. And it looks like a bunch of Band-Aids on a 12-year-old's knee, because they're working so incorrectly. You know, I always tell them going fast is actually the slowest way you can possibly do it, because you're going to make mistakes. So, you know, how do you resolve that kind of issue where there's a lot of talk of quality, quality, quality? Oh, but not if it's going to tell us to go later. And anybody who's working on a project sort of knows that the dates are planned out by all the steps that have to happen. But as each step gets a little further behind, the end date never changes, and you really don't get any more resources. So it's you know, having a lot of skill set to help move something like that forward is the way you can succeed, because that's the way I mean, I've worked for one organization for a very long time, so maybe part of it is the culture, but it's a well-known organization, and since I'm not really bad mouthing it, but it's just I wouldn't want to say who I work for at this point in time. But you know, how do you resolve those kind of things? You try and bring up that you know, we can't rush these, we have to do it right. And the other part of the problem is every quality auditor, every quality person knows the level of documentation and detail that's needed in review. And yet the people who are actually doing most of the records aren't required to understand it to that level. So you end up correcting reports when, again, doing it the first time right would be better. So how do you address that?
So, long question, Kathy, but
Yeah, I know, but it's just sort of the flavor of that, you know.
yeah,
You talk quality out of one side, and how do you get the embracement of quality in the
it
organization?
it is a lifelong struggle. I
Yeah.
can certainly say that, you know, I've been working now for almost 30 years. Not a lot compared to many of you, but I've seen many cycles of lot of love for quality, and then other cycles of just indifference. So the one aspect, of course, is to find companies where the leadership is already quality oriented, but that is not always possible. The other approach I have tried is to work on small wins, right? So I did realize, I distinctly remember working for a large IT services company about 15 years ago, and actually I did write a article in Quality Progress based on that change method. Is that we focused on small wins and making sure that every week to every couple of weeks we had something good to show to the leadership to win their interest, right? Not the ideal way, not the way I would do, but I did realize that when I was presenting programs and projects which were 3-6 months out, I was getting zero interest, and not even 5 minutes to talk to the CEO. But when I started showing smaller changes, even when they were small changes in terms of how a customer was helped, or how an account was helped, or a team was helped in small ways, weekly, fortnightly, monthly kind of outcomes, I saw that significantly, the leadership interest significantly change. So that's one piece of advice I can share from my experience, is that focus on small wins. If you don't get leadership support, talking more about large programs and stuff doesn't really help, because they have shut their doors. So to knock down the door, or to go get the door opened, you have to move to the smaller end of the benefits, I would say, spectrum, is something worked for me, could work
Yeah.
for you.
Well, Anshuman, you touched on a very important point. I think first place to start in any organization is to focus on the customer. How well do we understand the customer? What are their needs? What are their wants? What are their experiences? If you look at the entire journey map of how a customer or a potential customer first even becomes aware that your organization and or your products or services are available, then how do they get to know you better from that first point of awareness to doing more investigation to maybe purchasing, and then what was the sale process like? What is the after sales and service process experience like? But focusing on the customer and understanding how do they evaluate your organization's performance. Now, you can have all the internal metrics, but if they're not linked to the more important external perspective, you could be running yourself ragged, you're wasting time, effort, and resources. You have to really understand the customer. And if you can bring in that customer-focused approach to the organization, it will help yourself and your organization to improve and to grow. Well, it is 7:30 our time, and Anshuman, I know you have a flight to catch. I would like to thank you again for sharing your wisdom and experience with us. And if you have no other questions, guess we'll let Anshuman get on with his day and spread the good word.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone. And I guess, like I said
Thank you.
earlier as well, and anyone wants to reach out, my details are on the screen and they will be in the handout. So do reach out if you have a question, and lovely to meet like-minded audience, and always a pleasure to learn as well. And so many, the questions itself teach you a lot, or the comments that come in. So thanks for that. Thank you once
Yeah.
again, everyone. Bye-bye. All the
Thank
best.
you very much, Anshuman.
Bye-bye.
For those of you on the call, especially to our Phoenix section members, I hope that you can remain on the call for the next 15 or 20 minutes or so. We do have some information to share, and I would like to get through that information for everybody. So just some announcements first from ASQ. Of course, there are some events coming up. We've got the Quality 4.0 Summit in October, the third annual Women in Quality Virtual Symposium in December, and the annual Lean Six Sigma Conference, which is held here in our own backyard in Phoenix, is now, they actually have issued a call for papers and call for reviewers, as has the team working on the World Conference on Quality, which is scheduled for next May, and it will be held in Philadelphia. So if you are interested in presenting at either the Lean Six Sigma Conference or the World Quality Conference, they have provided the link, the website. They do put a reminder out that the call for reviewers deadline is August 17th for the Lean Six Sigma Conference, August 14th for the World Conference. And then if you'd like to see the application, or if you want to give a talk and you want to put together some proposals, there's an application form also. This information is available to you via either asq.org or my.asq.org, and you'll see that those links and that information. More about the Phoenix section. Of course, I share this every month. These are your officers, chair, secretary, and treasurer. And in the case of David, he also serves a dual role as our past chair, and Hillary is indeed our chair-elect and moves up to serve as chair beginning in January of 2023. Just a brief reminder to all of the section members who are on the call, you're in the running for a free 20-ounce insulated travel mug. You see the winners from the first 7 months. We're continuing this program through the end of the year. So names are drawn at random from among the Phoenix section attendees of tonight's call. And if your name is selected, you'll be receiving an email confirmation from me within the next day or two. We want to try and grow this conference or this program. So another challenge we have out there is for all of our section members to refer and recommend to any non-section members, maybe your peers, colleagues, supervisor, manager, neighbor, next door neighbor, want an opportunity to win a $150 gift card. We're trying to grow the participation. And it'd be nice too if eventually they become so satisfied that they want to join the section, then there's an additional bonus tacked onto that gift card as well. We measure our performance every month on a wide variety of indices. This is just one, and that's our monthly program meeting. Just a quick update, you see our meeting in June rather, had some low points, but we picked back up in July, and hopefully we'll have a good score in this August. And we do use this feedback. It helps us to identify possible speakers for the future. So please fill out that survey that you will all be receiving here in the next day or two, as well as a copy of your recertification unit certificate. The most important point of all of this newsworthy part of this presentation is the upcoming elections for the next year. According to the ASQ bylaws, every member unit, that means every division and every section of ASQ, has to have an elected chair, secretary, and treasurer. Well, we know who the chair is. That will be Hillary. But we now have the call for nominations is now open. We will be collecting the nominations through the month of August and September, and then October. If there are more than one person interested in either of these positions, there will be an election called. Every regular member of the section will be able to cast a ballot for a given position. If there is no contested position, then that lone candidate or applicant will automatically move into that position. But you'll find out more information the end of September, because then the elections proceed in October. And that's all that timing is because by November 1st, we, the member unit, have to provide our entire board structure for next year to ASQ. So those are the elected positions. We also have a rather large board of a number of appointed positions. So if anybody is interested in earning some RU certificates, of building their network by interfacing and participating as a part of this Phoenix section leadership team, we have several openings that I am currently aware of for next year. First and foremost, we have a call for members to join a quality conference planning committee. So this is a first time quality conference within the Phoenix section in a long while. And in fact, there are other sections who are looking to maybe pigtail onto this, and we can call it a regional conference. But we are looking for a handful of people to participate, because there are a lot of tasks that have to be accomplished in order to pull off a 1 or 2 day event. Not just a 1 hour program, but this is talking about a 2 day event. So we can use more than just 1 or 2 people. We can use a handful. If you're interested and you have maybe some experience, but experience is not required, we would love to have you join that planning committee. Other positions that are currently vacant on our board includes the newsletter editor. The content comes into the newsletter editor already developed. All the newsletter editor really has to do is assemble it into a newsletter and then distribute it amongst our members who have opted in to receiving emails from the section. All that is rather automated. And if you do have any questions, you can simply follow up with Hillary Werner. She is, again, both our newsletter editor and our chair-elect. We have an opening on our scholarship committee. The chair has had to step down for next year. We do offer the Ted Thal Scholarship through ASU. So this individual just works with the ASU endowments committee to come up with a list of scholarship applications, and then we, the board, review all the applicants and their credentials, and then that committee chair again interacts with Arizona State University for the official awarding of that scholarship. Other positions are available if you want to be a content editor to our webpage on my ASQ. I can certainly use the help. If you have any experience with Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and if you have some spare time, you could help us out by volunteering to serve as our section spokesperson on those platforms. It doesn't have to be all. Maybe you only have an expertise or an interest in one or two. But currently I manage all four. And then we do have another individual who manages our LinkedIn account. So if anybody would like to participate, that's another opportunity again to network with this fine team of quality leaders and earn additional RUs while you're at it. If you're interested in any of these or just want to learn more about any of the positions and job duties, just send us a note at our email, ASQ0704, contact us at gmail.com. I was mentioning this section quality conference. And again, if you're interested, please contact Hillary. She is the organizer, primary organizer of this event. She's looking for help, and we do need a committee. Among the things that this committee will do, they're going to select the dates. We've already determined it will be a 2-day, and based on a poll that Hillary did last month, it appears overwhelmingly that Thursdays and Fridays are preferred. We plan to have 1 day more workshops. The second day would be presentations. Need to come up with a site to hold the event, set the theme, then issue a call for papers, call for reviewers, determine the number of tracks, presentations, and workshops based on the volume of calls for papers that we receive. And of course, the whole arrangements piece, not only finding the site, but selecting the rooms, organizing the meals, putting together the agenda. And of course, finally, then the most important part, how do we put together the registration? ASQ does have an online software that they do use for registration. So we just have to make use of that particular application. And then we can set the fee structure for member versus non-member, or maybe someone just wants to participate on 1 day, or maybe both days. So those types of details need to all come together. We're planning to host this event sometime in October. Again, that was based on a poll. Looks like either April or October worked for the majority of the respondents. We believe April is a little too soon. That's it's less than 6 months away. So, well, maybe 7 months away, but we'll push it out to October, give us a little more planning time. So if you have any interest at all, we'd love to have you come aboard. Great way to dip your toe in the water and get some experience working with the team, and could lead to bigger and better things. Finally, as my wrap up, you will be receiving, all attendees will receive an email from our Voice of Customer chair in the next day or two. It will include both a survey link as well as your RU certificate. Please be looking for that. Future note about our programs. Next month, we will have Gary Jing talking to us about root cause analysis. Always a request for some of the basic tools. In October, we will have Roger Ritterbeck, who actually is local, and he'll be speaking to us about the changes to the aerospace quality management system standard. And we like to announce that that will be our first in-person meeting in over 2 years. Now, it will not be held down at Edward Jones in Tempe, for those of you who have joined us there in the past, but it will be at a Grill Falls training center located closer to Central Phoenix in Glendale, Arizona. But we will continue to offer the virtual option for all of our members and non-members who reside outside of the greater Phoenix metropolitan area. So it will be an in-person meeting really to help facilitate in networking, sharing business cards, looking for job opportunities. Really want to come back together and celebrate the quality community and build this practice, community of practice. So happy to announce our first meeting will be in October with a virtual option. You'll be hearing more details in the coming weeks. That's October. September yet will still be the 100% virtual option. Then in November, we have Katie Benyo, who will be giving her presentation that she actually shared at the most recent Lean Six Sigma conference about those improvement projects where you had to have hard dollar savings to kind of prioritize that project to get the resources. There's always a challenge. Well, how do I quantify a project that's gonna, it's delivering soft savings? Hard to quantify and prioritize that. But several organizations have developed a methodology to do that. And so Katie will be sharing some of that experience and information with us. So if you're working on a lean or probably more appropriately a green belt or black belt projects or longer length and duration, and it's more on a soft savings, head count or whatever, how do you turn that into hard savings? Not eliminating jobs, but increasing productivity so those people can work on other higher value opportunities. And then in December, which is usually our holiday networking event, so again, another face-to-face meetings. Who knows, maybe November will also be in person. We haven't yet crossed that bridge, but we will be having a speaker from the International Lean Six Sigma organization talking to us about how to achieve those results that stick. So they continue to deliver to the bottom line beyond when the project closes. So a lot of good speakers and topics coming up in the remaining 4 months of the year, and hope that you can join us for all of those. Again, we do have a presence on all of the different major social media platforms. Not there on Snapchat or some of the others yet, but really want to go where our audience is, looking at the generations and which tool, which app do they tend to follow. So we do try to have a presence on each. And that about wraps it up for my presentation. I guess before we close the evening, I do want to revisit the chat, see if anything came up. Gloria, who won the latest travel mug, commented she loves hers. Thank you, Gloria. And thank you, Anshuman. So no other comments, questions with that. Guess I'll ask anyone who wants to give one final word before we leave. Otherwise, I will adjourn this meeting and we will see you next month. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.